half an inch here, a quarter inch there, 3/4 inch here, 2/3 of an inch there. And the rain was the perfect storm. And basically they say most of the trails, while they were just charred nothing in February, you can't tell the difference now. They've come back almost 100% already.
Yeah, Mother Nature has a peculiar way of regenerating herself.
When you had that rain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's how things have always been. And that's why I shake my head.
Climate change.
Yeah, okay. Do we have climate change?
Of course.
Yeah, we do. We always have.
Always have.
We always have, and we always will. And I will tell you this. My main opinion as to why people are against, we need to just get rid of the carbon footprint and stop all this, is because why the levels of the ocean are rising. Well, who owns oceanfront property? Is it common folk? Is it poor people? No, it's the movers and shakers and the
one percenters.
The one percenters, the tenth of one percenters. And who doesn't want the oceans to rise? The people with beachfront property. Who don't give two shits? In fact, they kind of want the oceans to rise. The people who live behind them. I mean, think about that.
Sure.
What if you're the dude who has the property behind the guy who's got the oceanfront property? You know what? Climate change ain't that bad.
The crazy thing is, the last time I spent a week in Las Vegas, which is another favorite city of mine.
When was that? I put you on the spot. Sorry.
Let's see. It had to be 2013, 2014.
Really?
Yeah. It was that long ago.
What's the matter with you?
Yeah, exactly.
Mine is April.
Yeah. Well, I spent a day on Lake Mead, jet skiing.
Okay.
And all the way up to the dam, and you could see how the lake had just continually shrunk. Correct. From its original water levels.
And even with all the rains, the water level is still way down.
I'd love to see what it's at now. It
hasn't risen that much. Not really.
Now that's hard to believe, because you've had record snowfall in the Sierra Nevadas,
which hasn't melted yet.
You've had record snowfall in the Rockies,
which hasn't melted yet.
But it all has to eventually run downstream into the Colorado, and then down into Lake Mead.
But what you have to consider is, before it gets to Lake Mead, much of that is taken away, because there are a lot of people who live in that area, mm-hmm. and there's no what's the saying I heard? There was a guy who he prefaced it perfectly. He said, "There is no shortage of water in the desert. There's just too many people living in the desert." Which, if you take an area like Southern California, which
is the desert.
It's a desert. Okay, there are 18 to 23 million people that live in this desert. That's a lot of people to support. Once upon a time, there weren't 23 million people that lived there. There were 23,000 people that lived there, and it was fine. And if there was a fire that cleaned everything out, that's okay, because there weren't that many people that lived there. The Native American population wasn't that great. Even when the Spaniards populated it, and Father Junipero Serra made all his missions, there weren't many people living there. Certainly not 18 to 23 million.
Because the ground didn't sustain abundant life. But when man came in and settled it and populated it.
Well, it's not just man, because man's always been there. It's Whitey. When Whitey came in and ruined it all. Okay, let's be honest.
No, the last time I was in L.A., I was a minority, and I'm Whitey.
Well, it used to be Whitey. Now it's El Blanco Hombre. Okay, but that's just things change all the time. Okay, they always have. When with all this climate change in Greenland, the ice cap that covers the peninsula of Greenland is melting, and it is uncovering all these ancient Viking villages. That
cool.
were there. Yeah. Now, something happened.
Yeah, somebody lived there before the ice
Yeah,
came in and covered it.
Nobody had SUVs that caused global warming back once upon a time.
Are you sure those Vikings didn't have Suburbans?
I'm positive. The only Viking is that may have a Suburban is that guy who pitches for the New York Yankees, that Syndergaard guy. Other than that, there's no Vikings with SUVs. But climate change has always been there. We always have had and always will have.
Maybe the dragons caused climate change back in the days of the Viking.
You're thinking of Game of Thrones too much. You watch that show?
It's great. I have one more episode of season 8, which everyone's already seen, and yeah.
I watched the last episode of season 8. That was enough. I'm not going to tell you.
No spoiler. Can't hear it.
Let me tell you about Game of Thrones, and it's. I can't tell you the names of anybody on the Game of Thrones. I really can't. And I've probably watched about 15 episodes.
I can name them all.
I can name none.
In fact, going into the second to the last episode, so episode 7 or episode 5, because there's only 6 episodes in season 8. I started naming all the people that were going to die. I said, "Oh, Jaime Lannister's going to die. Cersei's going to die. The Hound's going to die."
Were you right?
I was right. and my lovely girl says, "How do you know all those people are going to die?" I said, "They're going to die. They're just going to die." And they did.
Well, here's the thing about Game of Thrones. I will summarize Game of Thrones in a few sentences. Here's what happens on every episode of the Game of Thrones. So, in fact, how many years? I don't know how many years it's even been going on.
8 years.
8 years. Okay. Here's, in a nutshell, the synopsis of the Game of Thrones. Okay. Somebody betrays somebody. People get naked, and there's a war. That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, but you got to throw in some dragons and
But there's dragons.
a lot of violence.
Lots of violence, but the dragons are just some of the fantasy. The violence is they have a war, but that's it. Yep. This guy betrays this gal betrays this guy. People get naked.
Yeah.
There's a war.
Yeah,
in fact,
a lot of cheating, a lot of stealing, a lot of killing, a lot of sex.
In fact,
a lot of blood.
In fact, here's the biggest complaint I heard. You've not watched the last episode.
I have.
I'm going to give you a little bit of a...
No spoiler.
No, this is okay. It's okay. Here's the biggest disappointment I've heard, and I agree with this disappointment on the last episode.
No sex?
No titties. No sex, no titties, no nothing. What the fuck? This is Game of Thrones. That's why you watch this thing. Okay? There's none of that. None of that.
That's disappointing.
That's the biggest disappointment. Now, those of you... prudish people who listen to the podcast, you think, well, what the fuck is Strong talking about here? Well, you know what? Here's a spoiler alert. Men like to look at titties.
Absolutely.
They do.
Women like to look at titties.
Well,
they do. Women dress for each other. They don't dress for us.
Yeah, but if you're dressed, your titties aren't showing.
Well, that's true. But they show them off. Up and in.
And the Mad Dog has just had one glass of wine and most of one Negroni. That's all.
I'm still working on my cough syrup.
It's not cough syrup. It's a Negroni.
It's rather relaxing on the larynx.
Campari can be a aperitif or a digestif, either one. In fact, you're using it as both. An aperitif, which is a before dinner drink, or a digestif, which is an after dinner drink.
Which aids the digestion.
It aids the digestion. That's exactly. The Italians call it, and the French call it a digestif.
Oui, oui.
The trophy wife says that that's kind of a gay way to say things, but it's what's called. It's fine. It's a digestif. It helps with the digestion. But Game of Thrones it's a good deal.
It's entertaining. That's what it is. It's an entertaining HBO miniseries that's come to its end.
Somebody betrays somebody. Yeah. People get naked, and there's a war.
It's great.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question. Are they going to really bring it back? Is it really done?
I don't know.
It made a lot of money. They're bringing it back.
I'm sure they'll bring it back in some fashion or a spin-off. You know, I can see a spin-off of the Starks, that's a family that lives in the northern part of the Seven Kingdoms, because so far they're still the dominating family because they haven't been killed off yet. But they could get killed off in the final episode.
Depends on if the people who play the Stark want too much money.
Could be.
It's always about the money. That's what the strong man always says.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Without
That's
a doubt.
right.
Follow the money.
Every time. Well, let me ask you. This is the first time you've been in studio when I've had the new equipment. Minor upgrade to the studio. We started talking about the Pokemon. They're still there. To my right.
There's a black and white photo of a gentleman with glasses on and a full head of hair and a mustache. He appears to be Hispanic.
He's not Hispanic.
But he looks Hispanic.
It's Art Bell.
I know.
I have a framed picture of Art Bell in the studio. Art Bell, there are a handful of people who are the kings of talk radio, and Art Bell is one. He is part of the trinity of talk radio.
Ironically, I kind of thought Art Bell would be a fat, bald guy.
No, he was never fat.
Because he has a good radio voice.
He does have a good radio voice because he smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day. That's why he has a good radio voice. But
Camel non-filters, honey.
He had the deep voice, and I've got a picture of Art in the studio. I also have a picture of Art Bell in my office at the day job. Believe it or not,
that's odd.
It's a picture of him reclining in his chair, accentuating his opinion with his hands, with his headset on. Obviously,
just tell me he has clothes on.
Oh, he has. Of course, he has clothes on. Of course, he has clothes on. Let me tell you something about Art Bell that every man can
appreciate.
Correct. First of all, Art was a dude who did things his way. He loved living in the desert, so he bought a double-wide trailer in Pahrump, Nevada. And he did a show from the double-wide trailer in Pahrump, Nevada. That's where he did his show. In fact, he was married to a gal for a lot of years.
Was that number 4?
No. This was number 2, I think. This is a long time ago. He was married to a gal, and he was working in radio, and she basically said, "You're not making any money in radio. You need to make some real money." So he quit that, and he got a job with cable television, installing and doing things with cable TV. And he was making great dough, 6 figures a year. And Mama was happy because you finally got a big boy job. One problem. He hated it. So he went back to radio. And she said, "Look, if you're not going to make this kind of money, I'm leaving." He said, "Adios, mujeres." And she left. And he got a job at KDWN, AM 790 in Las Vegas, doing the overnight. And he was a political radio guy. And then all of a sudden he thought, you know what? He started doing paranormal stuff. And he lit up the phone lines with that. And he kept on with that. In fact, I discovered Art Bell long time ago. We were in Las Vegas at a trade show. And it was me and a whole bunch of people. The boss had sent us to a trade show in Las Vegas. And he sent us, it was me, a customer service representative, a service technician, and all the salesmen. Well, the service technician, and the customer service representative reported to the manager of customer service. And he said, "Look, you can go out there, run this show, but I don't want to see any big expense reports. You're going to go out, latch yourself onto a salesman who is going to pick up the bill. Who's going to pick up the bill?" Okay. So it was me, the customer service rep, and the service technician. We were staying at the Las Vegas Hilton, and we went to Benihana's with a whole bunch of people. And the bill came. It was a big bill. We had a good time that night. And the service technician, who had had far too much to drink, said, "I'll take the check." I said, "Dude, the boss said don't pick up the check." "Fuck him. I was looking for a job before I had this job." Blah, 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 blah. Well, I knew if he had picked up this check, he couldn't defend himself because he lived in Chandler, Arizona, and he was going to get fired. So I took the check and I paid it because I figured I could talk my way out of it with the boss. He couldn't, I could, so I took the check.